A large number of unknown monsters from outer space spread to all parts of the world very quickly. All kinds of mysterious things kept happening. Something unknown fell out of the sky in the Middle Eastern desert. A huge deep pit suddenly appeared in the cornfield of a small town in the US. The cornstalks around the pit fell neatly. There were also abandoned vehicles of the missing person nearby. At the same time, special forces thousands of miles away received an order to go to a small town in the Middle East, only to find the town completely empty. Only a boy was drawing circles with his nosebleed. Even the Japanese space station was attacked by something unknown and lost signal. Since then, aliens had fully taken over the Earth, and the world had fallen into chaos. Mitsuki, a researcher at the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, worked with two boys who could sense aliens to locate the alien mother nest. She even erased part of her memory to stabilize the entrance of the mother nest, helping the special soldier Trevant get into the hub space to meet the little boy Casper. The two walked together towards the core in the center as the mothership fell into darkness. 2 years had now passed since this major thing. The outside world believed that Trevant and Casper's sacrifice had brought peace to humanity. Today was the anniversary of the mothership's fall. The Toby family sat in the living room watching the live broadcast to remember the deceased compatriots. But little Toby soon found that his pet dog was gone. Toby's dad saw that the door wasn't closed tightly and hurried out to look for the dog. Soon, the dog's whimper came from the grass. Toby's dad pushed aside the leaves and saw a strange creature gnawing on the puppy. At the same time, inside the Atlantic Portal 11, two personnel monitoring the alien mothership suddenly detected a sharp surge in underwater readings, which means the portal was being activated. Several soldiers with guns immediately surrounded it, ready to fire immediately if any alien creature emerged. But when the hatch opened, it was actually Trevant floating up. A few hours later, he regained consciousness, only to find himself locked in a room full of surveillance cameras. In fact, it's understandable that no one dared to approach Trevant. He had been on the alien mothership for 2 years. Who could guarantee that the person in front of them was the real Trevant, and not a puppet controlled by aliens? The officer could only question Trevant through a voice channel, like what his military rank is and who his family members are. Trevant couldn't figure out what this was all about. He dug out the most crucial question from his muddled mind: where's Casper? Unluckily, the officer couldn't answer this question, only saying that when the alien mothership crashed 2 years ago, the detector showed that the vital signs of you and Casper had disappeared. No one knew why you came back to life now. Soon after, the news of Trevant's return to Earth made headlines, but the government didn't disclose more details since the public already knew Trevant was alive. Chairman Joe believed he should be brought to the forefront to give the public an explanation. After all, Trevant was now the greatest hero on Earth. Chairman Joe gave Jack, the head of the intelligence agency, 24 hours to check if Trevant was safe. Helpless, Jack could only run one final check using a lie detector, and explained that after Horst and Casper caused the mothership to crash, the military had found 12 alien portals and sealed them all off, and the monsters known as predators had all retreated to the toxic area where the mothership crashed. Logically, humanity should have been safe by now, but Trevant had forgotten what happened inside the mothership, and always felt that a dangerous awareness was hidden somewhere in his mind. Jack promised to help Trevant recall it, but the immediate priority was how to deal with the public. Humanity needed a hero, a hope, so Trevant couldn't show his confusion and fear. Soon after, the government held a press conference for him. Casper's friend Gemma arrived at the scene with a nervous heart. She had been avoiding the past ever since Casper's death, but some wounds could only heal when exposed to the air. After the press conference began, Trevant read line by line from the teleprompter. Unexpectedly interrupted by Gemma, the injured girl threw herself into the hero's arms. This effect was far better than reading from the teleprompter, but Trevant couldn't answer Gemma's numerous doubts, because he had truly forgotten his experience on the mothership. Gemma felt helpless, so she could only give Trevant Casper's EEG results from before he died as a keepsake. Unexpectedly, the second Trevant saw it, he felt a sharp pain in his head, and some images flashed by quickly. Trevant immediately went to see Jack, telling him there was a new type of alien inside the mothership that hadn't left Earth yet. But seeing Trevant's emotional state, Jack thought he only had post-traumatic stress disorder and couldn't adapt to peaceful life. After seeing Jack's attitude, Trevant realized that staying here any longer was useless. He took advantage of everyone's inattention and escaped by climbing the stairs. Unexpectedly, Gemma quickly chased after him. She had seen the magic contained in Casper's mind before, so she believed the answer was hidden in Trevant's mind. Despite Trevant's opposition, Gemma insisted on joining him in the investigation. Now, even when Trevant took a bus, he would be surrounded by onlookers. He really needed an assistant, so he agreed to take Gemma's car and leave. In a remote Japanese village, after moving here, Japanese astronaut Mitsuki began living a true hermit's life. She never spoke to anyone else except her neighbor Sayaka, but beneath her seemingly ordinary life, Mitsuki remained highly alert. Every time she went out, she would set up a trap at the door. One day, while she was preparing dinner, she suddenly heard a strange noise, causing Mitsuki to accidentally cut her finger, and then black out and faint. When she woke up again, it was early the next morning. A small pool of blood had flowed from her injured finger, and the pot on the portable gas stove was almost burned through. Mitsuki calmly took out a notebook and recorded the time, when the noise happened and when she fainted. From the records, it was clear this wasn't the first time such an incident happened. Mitsuki kept wondering what message this noise was trying to convey to her. Mitsuki couldn't help but turn on her computer, only to see the news that Trevant had successfully returned through the Atlantic WDC portal. She immediately hacked into WDC's internal network to find out more relevant information, only to discover that the time Trevant was rescued was exactly the time she first heard the noise. Just as Mitsuki was thinking about whether there was a connection between the two, WDC detected an intrusion. She quickly turned off her computer and logged out, but she was still detected by a female agent, who immediately took her computer and reported to Director Bourne. At the same time, in the East Antarctic ice sheet area, Mr. Kapoor, CEO of Dharma Technology, hurried into the crashed alien transport ship 5. The core of this spaceship was unusually active, but scientists still didn't understand its reaction mechanism, nor could they explain why the cabin walls were fatally dangerous to alien creatures. Recently, the spaceship's core had begun to emit X-rays and gamma rays. The chief chemist believed that all mining activities should be suspended until its significance was understood, but Kapoor rejected this idea and immediately removed the person from their position as chief, and instead assigned the role to a more bold scientist. Shortly after, Director Bourne sent a call request, informing him that Mitsuki had reappeared. It turned out that Kapoor was the one who had invited Mitsuki to study the alien mothership back then, and had discovered her unique connection with the aliens. 3 days ago, the remaining predators had behaved abnormally. They stopped retreating and gathered together, and then Mitsuki appeared. Therefore, Bourne believed they should talk to her, and Kapoor was the best person for the job. The group soon arrived in the Alps. Kapoor first went to the neighbor's house, and then held up a photo of Mitsuki, asking if the neighbor knew her. Sayaka secretly left through the back door. She knocked on Mitsuki's door, and pointed to the black car in the distance. Mitsuki fled right away. Kapoor immediately took his guys and chased after them. Mitsuki used a crossbow to knock down several people, but was soon tackled by a bald man. As Mitsuki struggled desperately, she grabbed a wooden stick and immediately knocked the bald man unconscious. She picked up the man's phone. The person on the other line asked if the target had been caught. Mitsuki immediately replied, "We got her." When Kapoor caught up, he only saw a message left on the phone: "We're going to the cosmic ocean, it's right below." This sentence was actually what Kapoor had taught Mitsuki before. Following the clue, he arrived at a temple.
Nice touch. Using my story about Vishnu to guide me to a secret temple rendezvous.
Mitsuki appeared with a weapon and asked, "Why is WDC looking for me?" Kapoor pointed out that WDC was indeed wary of her, because no one knew what Mitsuki had become. After being exposed to the hive mind, WDC's duty was to protect humanity from alien threats, and according to current medical standards, Mitsuki's brain appeared to be that of a genuine alien. As soon as she finished speaking, she felt another headache and even fainted briefly for a few seconds. Kapoor immediately seized on this key point, and asked how often the headaches happened, but Mitsuki bluntly said, "If you really want to help me, stay away from me." Kapoor had to lie to Director Bourne, claiming he hadn't found Mitsuki, but Bourne and Jack didn't give up easily. They immediately sent an agent named Tamura to capture Mitsuki. Luckily, since her residence had been exposed, Mitsuki was just about to say goodbye to Sayaka and leave. Sayaka's father held a gun, and warned Mitsuki to stay away from his daughter. Being seen as a terrifying threat wasn't a pleasant feeling. The dejected Mitsuki went alone to Kanazawa to find Mei. This kind-hearted person had taken good care of her during the 2 years when she had just lost her memory. Mei's son Kenshiro also had some kind of connection with the aliens. As expected, he developed a headache just like Mitsuki, and kept hearing alien signals. And because Kenshiro had come into close contact with the predators, his reaction was much stronger than Mitsuki's. This made Mitsuki realize that, if she could make contact with the aliens, she might be able to understand the meaning of the frequency. As soon as she finished speaking, the sound of a car braking sharply came from outside. Mitsuki immediately found a place to hide. Tamura then knocked on the door. The camera at the intersection captured Mitsuki going into this alley 2 hours ago. Even though Mei pretended to be ignorant, Tamura deduced that Mitsuki must have been there. From the two sets of bowls and chopsticks on the table, she walked into the inner room, grabbed Kenshiro, and threatened Mei to tell the truth quickly. When Mitsuki saw this, she quickly grabbed gasoline from the attic, poured it on Tamura's car, and set it on fire. The car alarm successfully drew them away. Mei handed Kenshi's motorcycle key to Mitsuki, telling her to follow her heart and do whatever she wanted. In order to make contact with the aliens, Mitsuki followed Tamura to find their base. She then paid a woman to help her, asking her to operate using her own computer, at a cafe a few kilometers away. When Tamura traced the signal and chased to the cafe, Mitsuki took the opportunity to sneak into their office, and then used Tamura's computer to find the alien's location. Just then, the sound of footsteps came from outside. Mitsuki hurried to leave the scene. When Tamura saw the alien coordinates on the computer, a determined smile appeared on her face, now that she knew why Mitsuki had appeared. Catching her was only a matter of time. At this time, Mitsuki arrived at the coordinates, and climbed down the stairs into the bottomless underground, but Tamura arrived soon after. Mitsuki was about to run away, when a severe headache struck, followed by a fainting spell. When she woke up, she found Tamura and several other agents were all dead. Scarlet blood spattered across a whole wall. An alien approached Mitsuki slowly but didn't attack her. Mitsuki went to California, USA to meet Kapoor, telling him that a more dangerous species than the predators had awakened. There's a place I need to go, and only you can take me there. The place Mitsuki wanted to go was the Atlantic Portal 11 base. Kapoor had an informant named Brady there. The two followed him to the location of the portal server, and copied the data from the past 2 weeks, which would allow them to find the signal before Travant's return. But patrol officers soon approached. The two quickly crouched down to hide. Luckily, the patrol only shone their flashlights around once before leaving. Mitsuki crawled out from under the table, and the strange tinnitus phenomenon happened again.
Something's getting stronger.
Now, the current situations of the two main characters, Travant and Mitsuki, have been explained. It's time to check in on Anisha's family. Her life is now happy and fulfilling. Her eldest son Luke has grown into a teenager. He has not only joined the school band, but also has a girlfriend named Kayla. Anisha is almost happier than she was before the disaster, but the arrival of Travant and his companion disrupted the peace of her life. Anisha's son Luke, like Casper, can connect with the minds of aliens, so Travant wanted to show Luke the EEG results, to see if he could remember anything. But before Luke could react, Anisha, who was a doctor, raised a question. The brain activity in the graph is a single spike, with no waveform or amplitude at all. Gemma explained that the doctors at the time believed this tonic-clonic seizure was caused by something that happened on the spaceship. In short, their explanation was vague, and they didn't want to put in any extra effort at all. As for Luke, he showed no reaction after seeing the image, and admitted that he hadn't heard any signals since the mothership crashed. Instead, Luke's stepfather Clark called Travant into the study, saying that a user named Infinitas had leaked many government documents about aliens, the mothership, and activities in the death zone around the mothership, and his information seemed to be authentic. But apart from a photo suspected to be of Infinitas, there was no more information about him online. Clark pointed out that 3 minutes before Travant went back to Earth, the portal emitted a frequency, which was dismissed as random fluctuation at the time, but now it seemed this frequency was identical to Casper's EEG results. According to the information on the portal website, Infinitas' followers would hold a meeting in Baker City at 10 o'clock the next day. Travant planned to go there to check it out the next day, so he took Gemma and left. But that night, Anisha found her son sitting alone in the dining room, with a random doodle on the table. It turned out that, on the day Travant went back from the mothership, Luke had sensed an alien signal, and drew the EEG spike in his notebook, but the sound had vanished in an instant, so Luke didn't pay much attention to it. He also didn't want to go back to his old life, so he didn't tell Travant the truth. Anisha told her son not to worry and to go to bed first. She would figure out this matter and then tell others later. Early the next morning, Anisha found Travant at the hotel, saying, "I know the area around Baker City very well, and can help you find that location." Travant didn't refuse Anisha's offer. Instead, he tricked Gemma into the room and held the door shut. He didn't want to involve such a young kid in this. As soon as the two arrived at the meeting spot, Travant was recognized by a suspicious man. This private meeting was very strict. All participants had to register and go through security checks. The security guards even had military tattoos, making it obvious they weren't to be messed with. The two split up to look for opportunities to gather information. Anisha approached a man, saying, "If I want to get information about aliens, who should I talk to?" As soon as she finished speaking, Travant's identity was exposed. Infinitas' fanatical followers shouted abuse at him, calling him a WDC lackey, and a coward who betrayed his own kind. Travant took down several people who rushed at him, while Anisha hurried to get the car to pick him up. The two left the scene immediately. This trip had been a complete waste of time. Anisha didn't want Trevant to blame himself too much, so she simply told him about Luke seeing the EEG spike. As soon as she finished speaking, Anisha received a text message. Surprisingly, it was coordinates sent by Infinitas. He asked to meet the two at 4 p.m. Anisha drove for several hours to reach the designated location. Soon after, a car approached.
Hi, I'm Debbie. Leave your phones in the car and I'll drive you the rest of the way.
As soon as the two followed Debbie to leave, Anisha's husband Clark called. Unluckily, the phone was left in the car and no one answered. Debbie dropped them off outside a suburban villa. Inside the house were only a group of people, who looked very ordinary, and there was no way to tell which one was Infinitas. They asked Anisha what information she had to share. Upon hearing this, Anisha took out that EEG results. A woman wearing glasses pointed out, "We don't know what this frequency represents. The last time we saw it was when the predators first appeared." A man pulled up this record from the database and played it. Upon hearing it, Trevant suddenly started to have a headache. Images from inside the mothership flooded back to him. He saw a huge creature behind a translucent membrane wall. Before Anisha could ask what was going on, a group of men in suits broke through the door. They took everyone at the scene away without any explanation. At the same time, Mitsuki's actions were exposed. A large number of armed men broke in. She immediately pulled out the hard drive and hid it, but unexpectedly, her headache got worse and worse. A violent crashing sound came from behind Portal 11. The next second, huge tentacles stretched out. Kapoor quickly dragged the unconscious Mitsuki to leave. Soon, all portals were attacked by an unknown force. The government released a news announcement, requiring all residents within an 80-mile radius to evacuate urgently. Clark was very anxious, because he couldn't get in touch with Anisha. Just then, the doorbell rang. Gemma told them that Anisha and Trevant had left that morning, and hadn't come back since. Luckily, it wasn't long before Anisha called using a landline number, saying she was at an FBI field office in Boise. But the investigators only gave Anisha 60 seconds to talk, and hung up immediately as soon as the time was up. Gemma could tell the three children were worried about their mother, and took the initiative to say, "Clark and I will go pick Anisha up right away." Clark also got himself together and told the children to go stay at their neighbor Jenny's house first. "I will definitely bring Mom back." Before dinner, all current reports showed that the battles were taking place near the portals. Clark's house was thousands of kilometers away from any portal, so he could feel at ease leaving the children at home waiting. On the other side, Kapoor and Mitsuki were taken to the Skywatcher headquarters in Montana. Skywatcher was a department specifically established to deal with aliens, and it was also the place Mitsuki hated the most. As soon as she got off the plane, she punched Jack, then was immediately taken to a room where she met Trevant. At this point, Jack walked in with a general. Trevant immediately said that he had just seen a monster, hidden behind the mothership's wall in a hallucination, an alien more powerful than ordinary predators, and it was most likely the one that killed Casper. Later, Trevant also talked about how Casper's EEG matched the frequency emitted by the portal. Upon hearing this, Jack played that frequency, hoping Trevant could catch another glimpse of the scene on the spaceship. But this time, Trevant had no reaction at all. A woman in black said, "This is a normal symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. As more and more triggers are activated during the mission, your buried memories will inevitably come flooding back like a tide." Mitsuki and the others were stunned upon hearing this. "What mission?" Anisha immediately stated. "I won't take part in any mission. I just want to go home and reunite with my family as soon as possible." But the investigators believed Anisha was related to the Infinitas organization, because WDC had conducted a data scan on her home address, and found that a computer at that location had months of search records for Infinitas. Anisha had no idea that her husband had been tracking this organization for months behind her back. Now she had no way to defend herself, and could only wait for the verdict. At the same time, the general told Trevant and the others that all portals except Portal 11 were covered with vine-like alien tissue. It was clear from this that the aliens had retreated to the mothership not to wait for death. They were regrouping and preparing to attack. Moreover, scientists found that these webs connected the predators to the mothership through an unknown mechanism, which meant the previously developed neural darts were no longer effective, because the mothership's signal was no longer transmitted through the air. Humanity had lost its only advantage in this war. Predators were swarming out of every portal, and nuclear bombs had no effect on the portals. The military predicted that they would break through all defense lines in another 30 days. The only solution now was to destroy the mothership. But there was a reason. The area around the mothership was called the Death Zone. None of the scouts Jack sent out came back alive. He was reorganizing an elite team, and hoped Mitsuki and Trevant could lead the team, because the two of them knew the mothership better than anyone else. Upon hearing this, Kapoor couldn't help but ask, "You just said nuclear bombs are useless, so how are they going to destroy the mothership?" Jack said that when Trevant had pierced the mothership's core with a shard earlier, it had caused damage severe enough to make the mothership crash, so we need to attach a shard bomb to that core to destroy it. completely, cutting off the predator's signal at its source. This kind of operation is no different from suicide, but Trevant agreed without hesitation, and Mitsuki didn't refuse either. After all, neither of them had any family or friends, so it was better to fight for the fate of humanity. But Kapoor had no desire to take part in such a crazy plan. He was about to leave the scene when Jack stopped him. It was Kapoor who had designed and created the neural weapons in the first place, so Jack needed him to supervise on site, to prevent any malfunctions with the bomb, and there might even be a need to continue creating new weapons to face unknown threats, so Jack would never let go of a talent like Kapoor. It wasn't long before the helicopter was ready, and it would rendezvous with the main transport in 2 hours. On the other side, Clark met with a massive traffic jam during the evacuation. With no other option, he crashed through the roadblock and took a shortcut. The two finally arrived at the Boise FBI field office, but the receptionist was so busy that they had no time to help them find anyone. Clark caught a glimpse of the workspace password and asked Joel, a black guy who had also come to find his family, to find a way to talk to the receptionist and distract them. Joel had come to deliver medicine to his detained aunt, so he agreed to Clark's request and helped him sneak in successfully. Clark soon found Anisha. Just as the couple was about to leave, they saw Joel's aunt suddenly collapse to the ground after taking the pills. Her symptoms looked like anaphylactic shock. As a doctor, Anisha immediately joined in to provide first aid. At the same time, the person in charge found out that Joel's aunt was actually Infinitas herself, but the ambulance had already left. It turned out that this shock was just a trick Infinitas set up to escape. The helicopter carrying Mitsuki and the others was hit by an unknown alien structure and plummeted into endless darkness in an instant. When Mitsuki, Trevant, and the others woke up, they soon heard the breathing of alien creatures. Mitsuki sensed that about 12 of them were approaching. The team members accompanying them immediately started firing. Jack and Kapoor's helicopter also provided air support. These elite soldiers not only had to stay alert and attack the monsters at all times, but also had to take care of Trevant like a nanny, because as soon as Trevant got into this mothership docking area, various images kept flashing back and forth in his mind. Just as the monster was about to attack the frozen Trevant, Mitsuki quickly grabbed the alien vines to connect with the predators, forcing them to stop moving. But the consequence of this action was that when the predators were attacked, Mitsuki would feel the same pain. This impact caused her to faint. The team members carried Mitsuki on their shoulders and continued moving forward with these two burdens. On the other side, Jack's helicopter also broke down. He randomly called over 3 people to distract the predator's attention.
Disposable. The assets aren't. You got a problem with that?
No problem, sir.
The planet thanks you for your service.
The 3 stayed near the helicopter to distract the predators, buying time for the others to escape. As swarms of predators approached, Sanson, a young woman in the group, told her comrade to detonate the grenade. Everyone watched the explosion behind them with mixed emotions. Jack ordered his men to check their equipment. Luckily, the bomb was still intact, but the satellite phone couldn't reach headquarters. They were still 20 kilometers away from the main airport. For now, the only option was to head there on foot. Unexpectedly, they ran into Sanson and another survivor not long after setting off. She and one other person had narrowly escaped death, while the older white guy had been killed in the explosion. Before long, Mitsuki regained consciousness, because Kapoor had placed a device on the back of her neck that could suppress alien signals. On the other side, Anisha, her husband, and Gemila were taken away by Infinitas as rescuers. They wanted to rush home to reunite with their kids, only to learn the way back was blocked, and it was likely that communications would be cut off soon. Anisha and her husband immediately called home to let the kids know they were safe, and asked their neighbor Jenny to take good care of them. As expected, the call cut off right after Clark finished speaking. At the same time, 80 kilometers deep into the death zone, a woman stumbled into a cave, out of breath, and contacted Infinitas via radio, claiming she had met with a new type of monster. Infinitas was about to speak when she realized Gemila was eavesdropping nearby. Infinitas simply admitted to her that their people were patrolling the death zone around the mothership, and according to intelligence, Trevant was part of the mission to board the mothership. They were refueling at a makeshift airport a few hours away. This group had no idea what kind of danger they were facing. Infinitas wanted to send someone to make an anonymous call, warning them not to approach the death zone, but there was no telling if WDC would listen. Upon hearing that Trevant was only a few hours away, Gemila asked, "Why don't we go warn them in person?" Infinitas thought it was a good idea, and persuaded Anisha to go with them, telling her that she and her husband could take a plane home from there afterward. Anisha had no choice but to agree to Infinitas' suggestion, and they soon arrived at the airport and found Trevant. At this point, Infinitas' radio equipment, combined with WDC's antenna, boosted the signal several times over in an instant, allowing them to re-establish contact with the scouts in the death zone. Just then, but Trevant suddenly walked toward Kapoor.
Smile and pretend like we're shooting the shit. They got hostiles on the hangar rooftops right now.
What?
Don't look.
He then lowered his voice and told everyone to board the helicopter immediately, but the next second, people on the roof started shooting. Infinitas also killed Jack with a single knife. Anisha and her husband protected Gemelat as they boarded the helicopter. Trevant overcame his psychological trauma, took the weapon from an injured soldier, and covered everyone as they boarded. The fierce battle was very chaotic. Joel saw the helicopter was about to escape, and charged forward with a grenade. Trevant immediately grabbed his hands and slammed them against the cabin. It turned out that these civilian radical groups could never be trusted, no matter what, otherwise, you might not even know how you died. Infinitas' real name is Marilyn. 2 years ago, she was just an ordinary working woman. Marilyn and her younger sister Angie depended on each other, and almost raised Joel together. In short, Marilyn's life was busy but happy, but a predator attack shattered the peace. Artillery fire destroyed the place where she worked. Marilyn quickly told her sister's family to pack their things and get ready to evacuate, but the highways had already been taken over by the government, and everyone had to take buses to leave. While they were waiting in line, a large group of predators fell from the sky and broke into the buses to kill people. A few Skywatcher agents were far from enough to control the situation. Joel found a safe car and called for his mom and Marilyn to get in, but Angie was delayed because she was helping others, and the car had already started. Joel and Marilyn could only watch as the monster pierced Angie's heart, and the buses didn't even manage to take the refugees to a safe place. They ran out of fuel halfway there. Marilyn and her nephew followed the crowd to a church in Rivington, Illinois. Many locals had gathered inside, thanks to a kind local pastor who persuaded everyone to take in Marilyn and the other refugees from Chicago. Moreover, this pastor seemed to be the fake Infinitas exposed on the website. The addition of Marilyn and the others caused food supplies to be consumed quickly. She knew the pastor was under a lot of pressure for taking them in, so she volunteered to help manage the supplies. Marilyn had worked as a personal assistant for several years, and was best at planning and organizing. After taking inventory of the food, she immediately created a system for family-style group meals, and a detailed shift schedule for task assignment. Only by keeping herself busy could Marilyn forget about Angie's death. Before long, mobile phones finally got a signal, but everyone received news of a full-scale alien invasion. Everyone was terrified, and even the pastor could no longer trust God enough to lead everyone in prayer. At this critical moment, Marilyn stepped forward, telling everyone, the more critical the moment, the more we need to unite. But a group of people with ill intentions stole all the supplies and fled overnight. The pastor, whose faith had collapsed, chose to take his own life. Marilyn didn't want to break down in front of everyone, so she ran outside the church to catch her breath. Unexpectedly, a strange alien object appeared above her.
Marilyn, I need you. We need
Marilyn was certain she heard Angie's voice, but by the time she pulled Joel over, the strange phenomenon had already disappeared. Joel just thought she was talking nonsense.
She wants you to go to MIT and the house on Magnolia.
Wait. How'd you know about the house on Magnolia? We never told.
Joel remembered that only he and his mom knew about the plan to buy a house on Magnolia Street. Where on earth did Marilyn hear about it? Could it really be his mom's spirit appearing to her? Just then, a car had an accident on the nearby road. When the two went over to check, they found it was a food truck, which solved their urgent need for food, and the strange creature from earlier was watching, even controlling everything from a high place. After going back, Marilyn told everyone at the dinner table about the alien she had just seen, but this alien wasn't ferocious at all. Instead, it emanated a beautiful glow all over its body. It's connected to those who have died, and even brought us food. I think it wants me to understand why they came here. Joel also added from the side, saying he had done some research, and found that people disappeared without a trace, from time to time, and the government had known about this for a long time. They just covered up the truth, and kept the public in the dark. Everyone was quickly convinced by the two, believing that this mysterious alien species had given them a greater mission. With this unshakable belief, Marilyn and the locals built a community of considerable scale. In just 4 months, there was even a clinic here. Just as they were full of confidence, news that Trevant had shot down the mothership spread quickly. How could the new savior they had finally found fall like this? The disbelieving Marilyn walked to the grass again, hoping that creature would appear once more. At this point, a light breeze blew, seemingly in response to her prayer. Marilyn firmly believed that things weren't over yet. Someday, the door to our loved ones and those we have lost will open again. The Infinitas organization was born under such circumstances, and Marilyn would do everything to protect the mothership. Meanwhile, the helicopter carrying Trevant and the others met with heavy signal interference. due to its proximity to the mothership. Worst of all, the fuel reserves were announced to be exhausted. Luckily, the pilot spotted a runway and managed to make an emergency landing. The group arrived at Alaska Mothership Control Station, Outpost 17, only to find that every visible place was desolate and uninhabited, and there was no response from the base for a long time. There was even a huge hole in the wall that isolated the death zone. The further they went, the more uncertain they felt. Captain Tucker and Trevant led people into the tent and saw bodies and blood all over the ground. Kapoor checked the outpost's equipment and found that although the backup generator could operate normally, all the equipment circuits had been burned out. As if swept by a powerful electromagnetic pulse, they had to dismantle these old devices to see if they could get the console working again. After all, they were completely cut off from the outside world now, and hadn't had time to take the bomb with them when they escaped, so they could only find a way to send out a distress signal. First, Trevant instructed everyone to block the doors and windows, and reinforce the whole building, to prepare for unknown dangers. Since it was Anisha and her husband who had led Infinitas here, Tucker had them and Joel locked up separately, but while reinforcing the doors and windows, Trevant and Tucker found a survivor. Unluckily, the survivor ran away as soon as he saw them. The two ran over and caught the survivor. Unexpectedly, the man was in a frantic state. He shouted "Make it stop" twice and then took his own life. Trevant took the man's portable camera and checked the stored videos inside. To his surprise, everyone in the footage was killing each other. Could it be that being too close to the mothership caused human insanity? At this time, Kapoor asked everyone to gather all shard bullets, shard blades, and various explosives. Only this special alien shard could damage the mothership, although they hadn't had time to bring the shard bomb with them. Wasn't there a genius like Kapoor here? He might be able to create a new bomb? At the same time, Marilyn led the Infinitas believers to Alaska, 16 kilometers south of the death zone, to meet up with the accomplices guarding here. This group of believers living on the edge of the death zone was led by a long-haired man named Barnes. Shortly after, Marilyn received intelligence, learning that Joel was being held at the Outpost 17 headquarters, so she planned to lead people there for a rescue. On the other side, if Trevant and his team were to approach the death zone for reconnaissance, they would definitely need a doctor with them, so Trevant persuaded Tucker to release Anisha and Clark. As for Mitsuki, she was watching the video left by the dead soldiers frame by frame, and she noticed a strange shadow projected on the wall. There must be other terrifying things in this base. While listening to Mitsuki explain, Kapoor noticed the signal jammer on the back of her neck, and suddenly had a brilliant idea. Kapoor planned to dismantle all neural darts and neural rifles to use as parts. As mentioned earlier, neural darts were no longer effective against predators, for they were now all controlled by the mothership's hive mind, which was equivalent to a giant brain made of electric current. If they attacked it with something like a neural electromagnetic pulse, they could burn that brain out. Without a brain, there would be no synapses, and the nervous system would cease to exist, meaning predators would no longer receive any commands. Neural darts, in essence, were high-load neural inhibitors, capable of emitting electrical pulses to cut off the connection between predators and the hive mind. Now, they just needed to modify them to enhance their effectiveness, which would cause the most severe stroke in the hive mind's history. Upon hearing this, Anisha pointed out a problem. A stroke is only a single blow to the brain, and this kind of damage doesn't replicate and spread like cancer cells or viruses, so a mere stroke-like attack isn't enough to defeat the hive mind. They needed to create something similar to a virus, and attach the signal to a repeatable pattern, to make it replicate itself, not explode all at once, but accumulate continuously until every neural pathway is completely destroyed. This suggestion made Kapoor look at Anisha with newfound admiration. She was no ordinary doctor. Anisha had studied as a graduate student at Harvard, majoring in biochemistry and minoring in neurobiology. This group was full of talents. Mitsuki was also a top expert who had worked in telecommunications at the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency for 8 years, and soon detected a sub-thread in the video, which was beyond the range of human perception. Mitsuki thought this signal was the same as the one recorded by the portal. No matter what the shadow in the video was, it was sending some kind of signal at that time. Mitsuki wanted to try to isolate this signal. At the same time, when Gemula brought water to Joel, she noticed he kept looking out the window. She looked in the direction Joel was gazing, and noticed an antenna standing not far away. So she hurried out to tell Trevant, "Joel has been staring at the radio antenna of a certain building, so Marilyn has most likely planted one of her people in the base. If we can get that radio, we can contact WDC and reach headquarters." Upon hearing this, Trevant took Tucker to approach the radio's location. When the woman inside spotted them, she immediately grabbed the radio and fled. Trevant signaled to Tucker not to shoot, urging him to capture her alive if possible, but the woman suddenly rushed into the minefield, shouting "Long live eternity" before being blown up, and the radio was destroyed in the explosion too, but her death at least let them know the reconnaissance route was full of mines, so they could avoid it later. Besides that, Mitsuki also ran into trouble. When she repeatedly checked and amplified that signal, she interfered with the soldiers in the base by accident, causing them to lose their minds and kill each other, just like the people in the video. Kapoor was also gradually being controlled by that frequency. Luckily, Mitsuki reacted quickly and turned off the equipment, and the frantic soldiers returned to normal in an instant. But these men questioned why Mitsuki wasn't affected, and even said she wasn't normal at all. Maybe she was an alien too. On the other side, Marilyn heard the explosion and, combined with the loss of contact with the woman, guessed her operation had been exposed, and she could no longer launch a sneak attack. So she decided to first go to Carmichael camp, to meet up with the others. At the same time, inside the base, Kapoor pointed out that the reason Mitsuki wasn't affected by the frequency was that she had no memories. While each of us has minefields in our minds, things we fear the most, things we are most afraid of losing. So except for Mitsuki, everyone present is a time bomb. They had to act as soon as possible. Luckily, Clark found an alternative route. According to the map, the base personnel had abandoned it about 6 months ago, but it had been developed far enough. If they wanted to avoid the bombs, they had to take this risky route. At this point, Kapoor realized Mitsuki had taken the bomb he had just assembled, and got into the death zone alone. At this time, Mitsuki spotted those mysterious creatures in the forest. They were drawing nutrients from the vine-like structures. This made Mitsuki realize that the aliens hadn't come to destroy Earth, but to alter its atmospheric composition, to make it habitable for themselves. Mitsuki cautiously followed the monster to a bottomless cave. When the alien monster detected it was being followed, it immediately started a mental attack. But this had no effect on Mitsuki. The intense sound waves caused the cave to collapse, and Mitsuki was buried under the rubble the next second. Luckily, the stones were very loose, and she climbed out quickly. The bomb Kapoor had made was also intact. Mitsuki continued following the alien monster, and noticed it seemed to be trying to climb out of the cave, but got stuck at the narrow exit and couldn't get out. Thanks to her past experiences, Mitsuki could communicate with the aliens. She explained she meant no harm, and then helped the alien climb out of the cave. Luckily, the strange creature had a sense of gratitude. After climbing out by itself, it stretched out its tentacles to pull Mitsuki up too. They were getting closer and closer to the mothership, but the monster was injured and bleeding continuously. Mitsuki was still counting on it to lead the way, so she couldn't just watch it bleed to death. She found a crashed plane nearby, and cut the medical kit off the pilot's body. Mitsuki briefly checked the deceased's condition. It was obvious the person hadn't died from the crash, but from suffocation. After inhaling too much air from the death zone, just as Mitsuki was about to stand up, a black man named John suddenly appeared, unexpectedly. He seemed to be from Carmichael camp and part of Infinitas's group. He put a sack over her head and captured her. The bomb she was carrying was also seized. Mitsuki discovered that the members of this organization gave all their oxygen supplies to their leader, Carmichael, because he was one of the earliest believers. He had seen the aliens up close and knew how they operated, so others could die from the toxic gas. But Carmichael had to keep breathing oxygen to stay healthy. He ordered his men to open a cellar, which contained 2 predators. The mother was summoning them to go out and release spores to alter the air, but the cellar restricted the predators' movement, making them very frantic. Mitsuki was thrown in as food, but Carmichael noticed that the aliens didn't attack this Japanese woman. He dismissed the onlookers and kept Mitsuki for a private talk. When Carmichael raised his hand, a tattoo that said Monica was revealed. Mitsuki guessed that Carmichael kept breathing oxygen, not because he was afraid of dying, but because he was afraid of losing the memories he once had, especially the memories of his daughter, because the longer one was exposed to the toxic gas, the more muddled one's mind became. So Mitsuki told Carmichael, "I took part in the Amazon project. I dealt with aliens almost every day. It took away all my memories. Give me that bomb, and I will cut off this contact completely." Even though Mitsuki talked and persuaded for a long time, Carmichael still refused to betray Infinitas. Luckily, Mitsuki took this opportunity to quietly untie the rope on her hands. When John sensed something was wrong and rushed in, he only saw Carmichael hanging in the room. Mitsuki had long since escaped with the bomb. John took his guys and chased after her all the way to the edge of a cliff. With no way to escape, Mitsuki simply climbed down the cliff face, but a guy suffering from severe oxygen deprivation spotted her location and fired several shots. Luckily, the guy's mind was muddled and his aim was terrible. When John and the others arrived after hearing the gunfire, Mitsuki had already climbed to the other side of the cliff, but a bullet still hit her in the side. The enraged John killed the oxygen-deprived comrade, and had someone search for valuable equipment on his body. On the other side, Mitsuki roughly stitched up her wound, and followed the bloodstains on the ground, to find the alien monster again. It was lying on the ground waiting to die, refusing to move forward. Mitsuki had put in so much effort that she refused to give up, so she forcibly dragged the monster up, and urged it to keep going. The problem was that the closer they got to the mothership, the stronger the toxic gas became. In the end, it was Mitsuki who couldn't hold on. The monster poured the pulp of a fruit into her mouth, and the next second, Mitsuki regained consciousness. The monster didn't answer Mitsuki's questions, it just wanted to get home quickly. Before long, several of its kind came to meet it. Mitsuki quickly hid in the shadows. The monster that had saved her collapsed to the ground from exhaustion. Instead of helping, its companions extended feeding tubes and inserted them into its body. Just as Mitsuki thought these ruthless monsters were going to devour their companion, they actually injected liquid into the collapsed monster's body and successfully revived it. This made Mitsuki start to hesitate whether to destroy the mothership, but the severe blood loss made her black out and faint. At the same time, the WDC team was also moving forward. Kapoor found Mitsuki on a huge rock. By tracking the signal from the signal suppressor, he quickly lifted the blood-stained corner of her clothes, only to find no wound on Mitsuki's body. At this point, Travant lost his footing and crashed into those alien vines. Memories from inside the mothership flooded back again.
They're in your head, okay? But you can fight them. We can fight them. Stand up. Come on. Stand up.
In the memory, Travant held a shard and continuously attacked the core, but Casper, who was connected to the core, suffered from a splitting headache, and was then controlled by the mothership. In order to protect himself, Travant stabbed the shard into Casper's body. The next second, he woke up from the memory. Travant couldn't believe the truth, it was he who had killed Casper.
I'm sorry.
Take it back. You didn't.
At the same time, Mitsuki also regained consciousness. She saw that her gunshot wound had miraculously healed, and guessed that the monster had saved her. Even though everyone else thought Mitsuki was confused, how could aliens possibly save humans? But Anisha knew Mitsuki wasn't lying, because even though there was no wound on Mitsuki's body, her symptoms were a perfect match for hypovolemic shock. But why would aliens save a human? Or was Mitsuki even still human? Before long, the group started arguing again. Mitsuki sadly realized that maybe the aliens would really win, because humans always blamed each other and kept attacking one another, while the aliens thought as a whole, fought side by side, and healed together. Upon hearing this, Clark and his wife quickly interrupted Mitsuki's negative train of thought, asking where the bomb was. Mitsuki remembered dropping it near the crater, where the mothership crashed, and offered to draw a map.
You can't win.
Even though Mitsuki's words were despairing, Clark, as a father, had no intention of giving up. No matter what the outcome, they would hold on until the end for their home, just as Casper had done before. These words woke Gemila up. They couldn't let Casper's sacrifice be in vain, so Gemila went to find Travant, hoping he could recall what happened inside the mothership. After all, among everyone present, only Travant knew how to get into the mothership. The deceased were gone, and there was no point in dwelling on the past. Upon hearing this, Travant closed his eyes, and forcibly broke through his psychological defense mechanism, taking the initiative to bring up the memories he was most unwilling to face. He grasped the most crucial detail from those complicated flashback images. When Casper pierced the mothership's core, a force knocked him back into the maze. The shard in Casper's hand tore through the mothership's hull, cutting off some of the neural synapses, which meant there was a blind passage in the mothership that could avoid the aliens. Travant had hidden there and luckily survived. Shortly after, Tucker and the others successfully got the bomb back, but Marilyn's men arrived at Carmichael camp. Even though John had already killed Carmichael, Marilyn didn't care about his life at all, as long as there were enough people here to use. As they gradually went deeper into the death zone, some people with weak wills began to waver. They had been told this place was Eden, a new paradise, but now they could barely even breathe the oxygen. John's way of dealing with such weak people was simple. Tucker, who wasn't far away, heard the sound of gunfire. They crouched down, saw the Infinitas team ahead, and quickly went back to the camp to report to Travant. Marilyn had deployed an army of about 30 people. Everyone had to leave at dawn. Mitsuki was in charge of leading the way to find the mothership's entrance. Then Travant would lead the team through the blind passage to deliver the bomb to the hive core. This was a desperate plan. If it failed, all of humanity might be doomed along with it. Early the next morning, Marilyn's men found the location of WDC's camp tents, and quickly captured the soldiers patrolling the perimeter. But when the Infinitas organization rushed in, they found that the sound in the camp was coming from a walkie-talkie. In fact, Travant had already left early, and even left a small gift in the camp. Seeing the plan succeed, the patrolling soldiers pushed away the cult members around them and left. Anisha, Clark and others stood guard at a high position to clear out enemies, buying time for the bomb team. But the Infinitas members quickly reacted too. A militiaman approached Anisha from behind. In the nick of time, Tucker acted in time and saved her life. Both sides suffered heavy casualties in this chaotic battle. Tucker didn't want to lose more comrades, so he simply dragged Joel out, shouting for both sides to stop immediately, but he underestimated the fanaticism of the cult members. Marilyn, the woman who had once treated Joel as her own child, shot her nephew to death with a single bullet. If her sister were watching this from heaven, her heart would surely break. Anisha rushed to Tucker's side regardless of the danger, and dragged him to the back of the bunker, but Tucker had been hit in a vital area and was dying. Clark, worried about his wife, also picked up his weapon and charged forward, though he'd worked as an English teacher, and lived a peaceful life over the past 2 years. Clark had been part of a militant group when the disaster first hit. He snapped John's arm and drove a knife into his heart. Clark lunged over to his wife's side. Anisha reassured him, "I'm okay." The bulletproof vest stopped the shot. Marilyn didn't dare waste time and retreated in a hurry. Anisha and the others finally breathed a sigh of relief. Their mission was done. Now it all depended on whether Trevant could detonate the bomb. But the next second, a bullet pierced Clark's head in an instant. It turned out Marilyn had lured them into a trap on purpose, and hadn't retreated easily. Anisha lost her happiness once again, nearly consumed by hatred. Mitsuki had already led Trevant and the others to the vicinity of the crater. They just needed to keep moving along the alien vines to see the mothership's entrance. Mitsuki wouldn't go further with them, so she was soon spotted by Marilyn. Marilyn ordered her team to search for Anisha and kill everyone, planning to meet Mitsuki herself. Anisha had completely forgotten the burning pain in her lungs, for the flame of hatred burned hotter. She would never forgive herself if she didn't kill Marilyn. The group found Infinitas' footprints. Before they could react, they were ambushed. While the two sides fought fiercely, Marilyn wiped some blood on her hand, pretending to be injured as she approached Mitsuki, lying that her team had been completely wiped out, and she was the only one left. The fact that Marilyn could brainwash Infinitas' members into madness proved she was good at reading people's minds. Mitsuki indeed lowered her guard at her words. Meanwhile, Anisha, brave and fierce, led her team to capture Barnes, and could tell from his words that Marilyn had gone to find Mitsuki. She wanted to use Mitsuki's ability to get into the mothership. Upon hearing this, WDC's female leader told Anisha to hurry and stop Marilyn, saying she and her teammates would stay behind to hold off the Infinitas organization. At this point, Trevant, Gemma, and Kapoor had already gotten into the mothership and successfully found the blind passage. There was no electric current or signal transmission here. Like a dead nerve, Kapoor suddenly froze in place, trapped in his most painful memories. Soon after, Trevant also began to zone out. A horde of monsters was approaching from the maze not far away. By touching the vines, Mitsuki understood the signal. The hive sent to the monsters, attack. Just then, Anisha caught up. Marilyn revealed her true colors and held Mitsuki hostage. She even had the nerve to persuade Anisha to let go of Clark's death, saying, "Human life is limited, we are fighting for the infinite, then why don't you sacrifice your own life?" In Anisha's eyes, Marilyn had long lost her original intention. She had initially founded Infinitas, hoping to see her deceased sister and regain her loved one, but now, for a vague and illusory wish, she had personally killed Joel, the last of her family. Marilyn didn't want to hear Anisha any longer, and immediately shot at her, but Mitsuki had already seen through this person's misery, and didn't leave with Marilyn. Instead, she went to bandage Anisha's wound. At this time, Gemma, the only one still conscious inside the mothership, actually saw Casper approaching step by step. She gradually couldn't tell the difference between illusion and reality. Meanwhile, Kapoor was transported back to his distant childhood. Back then, to change his difficult situation, he had helped a casino collect bets, but brought a fatal disaster upon his family. Trevant, on the other hand, remembered a mission in the Middle East many years ago. He had lost all his comrades and went back home alone, only to learn that his 2-year-old son was seriously ill and incurable. Those were their most terrifying memories, the old wounds they were most unwilling to face.
We're not like the aliens. And we have weakness. But we keep trying. For each other.
We've come this far, risking everything, for our families and for happiness. How can we let our home be destroyed? Anisha had said everything she could, but Mitsuki still refused to go to the mothership with her, for she had been betrayed by humans her whole life. When Mitsuki placed her hand on the vine, she unexpectedly accessed Kapoor's memories from 2 years ago. It turned out that, when WDC had dissected Mitsuki's brain for research, Kapoor had tried his best to stop it, but he had never said a word to defend himself, causing Mitsuki to believe Kapoor had handed her over to WDC. Now Mitsuki suddenly realized there was someone in this world who had fought for her. She immediately ran toward the mothership. At the same time, the clever Gemula wasn't deceived by the Casper in front of her. She realized this was just her illusion, and now was the time to let go. Gemula successfully snapped out of the memories. On the other side, Anisha, who had been locked in a fierce battle with Marilyn, finally waited for Mitsuki. She fired to cover Mitsuki as she got into the mothership. For the monsters had already approached the blind passage. Mitsuki realized there was no time left. She simply removed the suppressor from the back of her neck, releasing a huge burst of energy to lure the monsters away. Kapoor and Travant finally woke up. The two quickly found the core and set up the bomb. But this time, Kapoor wouldn't leave Mitsuki behind. He was determined to take her away from the mothership with him. After saying this, Kapoor activated the bomb's countdown and immediately went to find Mitsuki. Soon after the bomb took effect, Anisha, who was standing guard outside, realized they had succeeded, but no one expected the mothership to capture Mitsuki. At the last second, in the blue light, she thought of her loved ones, and gradually disappeared at the top of the mothership. Travant hurried to pull Kapoor away. Anisha shot Marilyn dead with a single bullet to avenge Clark. Without the hive mind, the predators were no longer a threat. Humanity achieved victory once again. Everyone went back to their original lives. Some had to bear the pain of loss, some finally embraced a new life, and others vowed to find the ones they refused to lose again. The third season came to an end with a regretful ending. If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.